What's going on, everyone? TheAireaidLord is here. Welcome back to a review vlog, TV-based. Not The Walking Dead, not any discussions about The Walking Dead, as I am normally known for in the realm of TV shows. I have talked about Game of Thrones a little bit in the past, not frequently. Mainly Walking Dead, as most people know me by. But I had the chance last night to watch episode 1 of the Last of Us TV series, and I wanted to give some opinions on it. I completely forgot it was even coming out. I saw the promos, but I didn't know it was this soon. I thought maybe it was like end of January. And then my brother's like, oh, I'm getting ready to watch the first episode. It premieres at 9 o'clock. So it's similar to how they were doing House of Dragons in the fall, where it's, one episode per week, and that was the same of the original Game of Thrones as well. So I had some thoughts on it because as also a gamer, I mean, for anyone who knows my gaming history, I am a huge Jak and Daxter fan. It is my favorite game series of all time, so therefore I am a big Naughty Dog fan. I played all the Crash Bandicoots as a kid, played all the Jak games, obviously. I didn't play the Uncharted games when they came out, but I eventually played them, so I got the Uncharted collection for PS4, and then when Uncharted 4 came out, I did get Uncharted 4 on launch. I think I also got Uncharted 3 on launch, because I did it for my YouTube channel, way back when I was getting the games, like, on release day. And I think Uncharted 4 might be one of my last playthroughs, because, like, that was, like, the last time that I did, like, a full start-to-finish kind of thing. I remember I recorded Deus Ex Mankind Divided, but I didn't end up uploading like all the videos. I only did like a few. So I played and then of course I played The Last of Us 1, which is what season 1 of this show is based off of. I will say that actually to this day the only Naughty Dog game that I have not played is The Last of Us 2. Take a sip before I go into this. But I did not play The Last of Us 2. At the time, I was, it was the middle of the pandemic, in the middle of 2020 when that game came out, and so I was trying to figure out some personal things just in terms of, how I was adjusting with all that shit that was going on at the time. And then as I delayed buying the game, I started to see reviews and I started to see opinions and comments about some stuff that happens in the game. I was not a big fan, especially the ever-growing ego of Neil Druckmann. I could make an entire video about this, but I just think that he's a very talented individual. I think he's given a lot to storytelling in the video game medium, and I think he's given a lot to, Now TV. But I just think the way he defended The Last of Us 2 and some of the storytelling decisions, and just the inability to have a discussion around it, and just disregarding people's opinions as, not being PC warrior, and, I don't want to get into the full thing, but some of his comments when people brought up criticisms rubbed me the wrong way. And the fact that the game just won a zillion, it won an insane number of awards for reasons that I don't think it was warranted. And I think the first game, absolutely, I think that game deserved all the awards on the planet. But I just don't think the second one, I mean, even just if you align, most people say the first game is better than the second. Even if you want to extrapolate the good pieces from it, the non-controversial pieces from it, I still think people prefer the first game to the second game. Now, I can't completely align this thinking here because I haven't played the second game. So there is a piece of me that's like, okay, I'm not the best judge to, directly align these. This is only from what I watched a friend play the second game, and so, maybe my opinion's not the strongest as someone who has completed both games start to finish. I could recommend some YouTubers. I know Angry Joe did a fantastic job with his review and why some of the narrative storytelling was not effective. The only reason I make this an aside is because I do wonder if they're going to adapt the story of the second game. So, once I assume season 1 is going to cover the entirety of the first game? Is that to be assumed? Like, I don't know if they would go into season 2 and still be telling the first game's story. So, from all reports I've seen, the first season covers the first game. So by the time we get to the season 1 finale, the final moments of the first game will be occurring. So, it remains to be seen. And I will, will they change it? I don't know. Maybe Druckmann will have, opinions and maybe change some things. Now, again, he staunchly defended the storytelling in the second game. So if anything, he's going to rub the salt in the wounds of the people who didn't like it and say, oh, hey, look, the second season's really going to divulge into this. So if you don't like it, too friggin' bad. Now, slight spoilers for the events that happen in the second game. I think, it would be kind of problematic because, you get Pedro Pascal as Joel. And then, if you guys know what happens in the second game, you're going to eliminate that character from the story, like, in 5 seconds? So, like, and then, like, well, it's like, hey, Pedro, we want you for season 2. Oh, wait, you have, like, 3 scenes, like 2 flashback scenes and a scene where you get killed by a controversial character. Like, have fun with that. So, especially if he knocks it out of the park with the first season, like, because I'll get to the review in a minute, but like, if he does a great job and this continues to be great quality acting and great quality storytelling, it's like, oh, like, you'd think he'd come back for a second season, but yeah, no, the storytelling of that second game is not going to allow it. So, I'm jumping down the way forward. I should really get to the actual review, which is, the purpose of this vlog. So, one of the main reasons I wanted to make this vlog is just because I was impressed, and that's maybe why I prefaced some of my complaints with Neil and his staunch defending of the second game and some of the storytelling of the second game, because, anytime The Last of Us and Naughty Dog and Neil Druckmann has been brought up, I've been a staunch critic. Some of my friends know this who are involved in gaming. I've made mention to this. Not as much on my YouTube channel, but I have said before that, I think the guy's talented, like I said earlier, but I just think that, he could be handling some of these storytelling things, like, differently from a storytelling perspective, and then the PR, the public relations of how he's saying things on Twitter or saying things to people who disagree with him. Like, I think it just comes off as elitist, and I don't like it. But that being said, this opening premiere episode was amazing. Like, I loved it. I loved that it had some new scenes that weren't just play-by-play from the video game, but then there were also some scenes that did feel like they were play-by-play from the video game. But the cinematography and the storytelling of that opening scene when the world goes to shit, and, this is all spoilers, so if you haven't seen the show or the game, just, spoilers, but all that stuff with Joel's daughter, when the world is going to shit, that's an emotional roller coaster, even in the game, that really sets you up for how just raw and gruesome this world is. And, and I love how the first scene is this random, I don't know if those scientists will be referenced again, but, like, it opens with, like, a panel on fungus, like fungus viruses, and the commentator is kind of shitting on it. He's kind of joking, like, ha ha ha, viruses taking over people, ha ha ha, that'll never happen. And then the scientist is like, well, there's evidence that, this thing could grow and this thing could mutate. And so it reminded me of some disaster films where they do that, like, they set up, like, everyone thought that it could never happen, but then it did. So it had staging like that, because I don't think, like, unless maybe there's, like, a shot of a character and when they're going to the audience, I don't think anyone from that 1968 scene comes in anything in the later in the show. I don't think there's any reference to any of them. So that stages us for, the fact that, hey, guess what? A virus did infect everyone. And I don't remember. Did the game take place in 2003? Because the year that everything falls apart is 2003 in the show, and then it's 20 years later. So ironically, 2023, which is the current year for us, and that's when their story is taking place. But obviously, this is 20 years later, and the world has completely fallen apart. It's just interesting because, thinking what was going on, and I was a kid in 2003, and it's cool. It's funny because when the daughter is in school, you see a portrait of George W. Bush, and it's like, oh yeah, he was president. Not only that, it was 2 years after 9/11, so terrorism and bio threats were a huge thing that everyone was worrying about, and that probably would have been the propaganda. There was, I forget which character says it. Someone does say, I think maybe it's Tommy, mentions oh, this could be a terrorist attack. They do make that side reference because that's what everyone was thinking at that time. We were going into Iraq to start that war, all the controversy with George Bush's term, and Dick Cheney and terrorism and all that. I mean, that's the early to mid 2000s after 9/11, and so now you add this zombie apocalypse event into it, and I was laughing because I was watching it with my dad. I'm like, oh wow, in this world, George Bush is the last president. what a he's like, and the United States fell, and its last leader, George Bush, went to his fallout shelter in Texas and was never seen. I don't know. I would be curious in the plot of The Last of Us. Where did George Bush go? Is he still alive? Is Dick Cheney in the Halliburton space shuttle in space? Where'd he go? But yeah, the new scenes, so they add some additional scenes with the daughter when just a day in the life. She goes to school, she has breakfast, she goes to the watch repair store to fix a watch for her dad, which he still has in the time jump. And then when she goes to the watch store, the woman hurries her out and shuts then you see the streets are deserted, they shut the gates. And I always wonder though to myself, one plot thing, I think I enjoyed everything in this episode. The one plot thing I didn't understand was the daughter was curious about what the hell was going on when she got hurried out of the watch store. So we then cut to her at home watching TV. Now, we don't know what she's watching, but wouldn't one think to turn on the news? Because she thinks she saw the cop cars, it's the typical, apocalypse setup, multiple cop cars, they later see the 2 jet fighters shooting over the sky, it's all that kind of stuff when, to the Hollywood heightening of fear in the air, So I just I don't know why she didn't turn on the TV to see what was going on. And I am kind of disappointed as the viewer to not see any news coverage of what was happening. I mean, they didn't do that in the game. And that's one thing I was going to get to about this episode, is that it's very loyal to the game. Even to the point where the scene where the daughter is in the truck and they're on the highway and they're driving away and they're trying, it is almost verbatim to the game. And I'm talking in terms of camera angles, how she is in her back seat and she's turning and swiveling and turning around, and she sees people who are stranded with their cars, and she sees additional people who are infected, and then looks up and there's a plane blowing up in the sky, and it's I love how loyal they were to the cinematography of the game. I appreciate that. That's amazing because, again, taking everything with Neil Druckmann and Naughty Dog and The Last of Us aside, video game adaptations just have not done well. Whether it's Resident Evil, Assassin's Creed, that was terrible. I mean, think of how great... I know the story of Assassin's Creed in the video games ended up divulging into crap once Desmond Miles died. But, I'd say like Assassin's Creed 1 up until the Revolutionary one with Connor was like the best of the story with Desmond, and none of that was in the movie. Like, it was a brand new, it was almost like a side story in the Assassin's Creed universe. Like, it was stupid, because these Hollywood directors, and like they're like, oh, like, let me take the story and do something different with it. A Halo's another, like, the story of Halo 1 through 3 it's untouchable. Like, the story of, especially Halo 2, when the Arbiter and Master Chief and them both trying to, go against the Covenant and trying to, like, the race against time, against the Flood, like, nothing that you can adapt. And I know there was the big announcement, oh, Steven Spielberg's making like a Halo series. Like, no one cares, because you already hit the height of storytelling for that universe in the game. And all the adaptations are terrible because they try to change things and give their interpretation. And with a book, it's different, because a book, there's no film. Like, the book is pages. It's physical parchment, unless you have a Kindle or something, but it's physical parchment, and there's no scenes. Like, the way a book is structured in storytelling is far different than a digital medium like TV or movie or video games. But then video games are a specific medium where things have to flow. You have to have a cutscene, flow into gameplay, flow into a cutscene, flow into gameplay, more gameplay. There's like a flow to it. And so when you take that and try to do like TV, like, it almost just doesn't .exe does not register, if we're thinking of like a computer error. Like, it's not. That's why the genre hasn't had success when it's tried to elevate to that point. So from just watching this one episode, though, I was just impressed with how they honored it. It's almost like Druckmann was like, I will give him credit, because he was almost like, hey, I kind of figured out a way to make the TV adaptation effective, because we need the raw emotion, the raw storytelling and character development from our game that made it great. It's got to be in there. And then we're not just going to radically change stuff. We need to honor the atmosphere, the way that, because we pulled off a cinematic marvel within a video game on the PlayStation 3, which is now 2 generations older. And we need to adapt that to television and keep some of the aspects. So the camera and some of that, like, and the thing is, though, like, I actually think the infected in the show are scarier than they are in the game. Because, yeah, they have those twitchy movements and stuff in the video game, but, like, they almost move wonky like a video game NPC would. And so there's kind of like a motion. Like, you can almost like, oh, like, they're going to be in this hitbox detection. The NPC is going to move in this, like, linear hitbox. They might move wildly a little bit, but, like, they're mainly going to be in this, like, area of a hitbox that I can kind of trap them in. But in the show, they've got the whole canvas. Like, the scene where Joel and his daughter are running from that infected guy, and this thing is just coming after them. Like, it runs into the diner and just knocks over shit. Like, it's because in the game, like, you would have to have very specific scripted things and, like, hits over this, and that takes time. But in the show, like, you can just it's whatever. Like, you can just have it just happen. And again, like, it makes you think, like, wow, like, how have more video game adaptations not done well when you have the ability to upgrade like this? But again, like I said, they don't translate it in the storytelling methodology properly. So, and I'm giving kudos to this premiere episode because I feel like it did. And even just minute details, like the way his, spoilers again, but the way his daughter gets shot, the specific area that she gets shot, where she's bleeding out, the way Joel embraces her. Like, you just get these little nuances that are just so specific. And Ellie is, foul-mouthed and just out there, just vocal character, just like she is in the game, not afraid to speak her mind. And Joel's got that hardened, the shell. I like Pedro Pascal as an actor. There are times where I'm like, is that Joel? Because I'm so, like, Joel is almost like, I almost envision like a, was it Brad? Is it Bradley Cooper? What was or like a Ben Affleck kind of guy, like just like an average Caucasian white dude with like gray hair and a gray beard and just a gruff voice, and Pascal like does I think the best possible job of portraying Joel, and so like that was I wasn't as sold on his casting when I saw it, but I mean, he did a good job. I think it's just me having played the game. Joel is the main character for most of the game in The Last of Us, so like I have an image of how he fights and interacts and plays, and so maybe I'm trying to project that. But I mean, the actors did a great job, and the fact that Marlene, the Firefly leader, is the same voice actress. Like, shit like that is cool, man. Like, that is cool that they brought her back, that she, did the role again. That's some really cool stuff. That's really, really cool stuff. So I was impressed overall. Like, I was looking for, some places to, criticize it. I'm trying to think like what I could, because I mainly liked it. I was surprised they rushed into introducing us to Ellie as quickly as they did. Like, I felt like there should have been maybe a little more build up to like Joel's mission with Ellie, because I don't believe Marlene and Joel meet each other until the end of the game. And that was one thing I was watching the show. I'm like, oh, these two characters don't like, because they're they have a very heated discussion at the, obviously at the end of the game, and I don't know if Marlene is there. I could be wrong. It's been so long since I played the first Last of Us game. It's coming up on 10 years since I bought it, which is insane. But, I just, like, it was just so sudden. It's like, yes, Joel, I trust you to take the cure all the way to Wyoming. Like, it was just so sudden. I thought that the flow of the plot for how Joel finds Ellie and does that whole thing, it flowed a lot better in the game. So I guess that's my only complaint. Like, I know they wanted the two main characters to be together at the end of the episode. They were like, all right, we need our star and our star together, get them together, and now they're off on their adventure. But I just remember things being a little like the connection of events was just more succinct. But that's a minor thing. So, but yeah, I mean, I love the episode overall. It was just dark and gritty. Being, writing a dystopian universe of my own right now, it was cool to jump into this. The fact that the same composer for the soundtrack is involved, that's super freaking cool. Yeah, I have a lot to praise this for. Again, like I started off the video, and that's why I wanted to bring context, because I have been a critic of Druckmann's and have not agreed with like the things that I've said earlier in this video. Some elitism, some ego, narcissism. Like there are some things where I feel like it's a bit much to justify bad storytelling, because I don't think the second game had good storytelling. The first game had amazing storytelling. I just don't think that the second one did. And it's okay. You don't hit a home run grand slam on every single project. I mean, even for me as a writer, like I don't consider every single chapter to be a grand slam when I write it. Most of the time, 99% of the time, 100% of the time, I got to go back and edit that freaking thing. All right? And even when I edit it, there could still be something that I'm missing that's like, oh, maybe something should have been slightly tweaked and it could have flowed a lot better. At some point, yeah, you got to release it. So you can't edit infinitely. But I'm saying if you see flaws and, they're apparent, they're there, own up to them, because then that can help you craft something better in the future. Maybe The Last of Us 3 can turn things around and make the whole story, you can add some new characters and just recapture the feeling of the first game. Like, I don't know how. I don't really know how. And I know I've seen multiple rumors and articles that The Last of Us 3 is, in fact, Naughty Dog's next game. I don't know how they're going to tell. I don't know. I don't know, because most of your characters are gone. it's just, I don't know, it felt like the second game kind of closed out everything. So I don't know. I mean, that's the thing though. Given the success, if this show is successful, of course they're going to make a third freaking Last of Us game. You know, it's just they're just going to print money. So there's no reason to not, from their perspective. I'd love for Naughty Dog to go to a new IP. As a Jack and Daxter fan, I've held hope that they might freaking make a new one, but the current leadership doesn't want to. I mean, that's a discussion for another day, but the current leadership doesn't want to. A lot of those old animators and programmers and the people that were involved in the early Jack games, like, they're not there. Like, even Wells is one of the last remaining people. There are some other individuals who've moved up in the company, but, like, that original team, the core writers, like, I don't know if they're still there. Some of them have gone to other video game companies. And Druckmann would probably be at odds because it's a sci-fi fantasy universe, and what he's trying to tell now, and that's one of the reasons they didn't make Jack 4 and they made The Last of Us, because that was originally the plan. They were going to make Jack 4 and they weren't going to make The Last of Us, and that's why you see this duo right here. It's like, oh, that's not Jack and Daxter, that's Joel and Ellie. It's a more grounded, serious, quote-unquote, type of storytelling, you know, because, you know, the Jack and Daxter games were whimsical. You know, it was a wide open sci-fi universe where there was a magic system that you had to kind of understand. But I think those are different genres. Like, I don't knock and say that the Jack games are any less effective storytelling than The Last of Us. Like, yeah, The Last of Us has a more succinctness because it's on newer developed consoles. I mean, what would The Last of Us storytelling have been if it was on the PS2? And the Jack games were on the PS3, PS4. Like, you know, in a sense, it's comparing apples and oranges because, you know, the hardware limits you to an extent. But, again, I'm adding things from other, you know, opinions and such. So, essentially, I really like this episode. I will give it a 9.5. I don't know if I'll be doing reviews for every episode of The Last of Us. This was more just, like, I didn't even, like, consider watching this series, to be quite honest, just because of, you know, how I was feeling about the series in general. Or, like, just the video game series, I mean. But I'm pleasantly surprised, and I will continue watching this. I am very, very impressed and very, very intrigued. So, that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it, and let me know what you guys think. Like, are you watching this? Do you like it? You know, are you a fan of the games? Like, do you agree with me about the second game? Because I know the second game had controversy. There were a lot of other people besides me who had those opinions. So I know I'm not the only one. But at least for this series, at least for this premiere, Druckmann did an A-OK job in my book. So that's all I got to say. So thank you guys for watching. 9.5 for me. And maybe I'll do another one of these. I don't know. But if I do, I'll let you know. All right. Thanks, guys.